Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Brewing with Jim.
You want me to say the same thing?
It's usually the part. It's usually the part
I'm
where
glad
you say something.
I'm glad to be here. It's fun to be here. We have more fun than we. I don't know. We have a lot of fun. We probably have more fun than the audience anticipates.
Yeah.
It seems like a serious podcast.
Yeah. I feel like every time before I press record, we have to be like, whew, okay, bring it in. We got to record. You know, like our sort of like pre-recording time is like kind of ridiculous, and then we're like, okay, we got to get to business now.
Okay, well, let's get to it then.
Let's get to it in that case. This is a show, by the way, it's called Brewing with Jim. And my name is Joseph. I'm co-host and producer and question asker. I'm sitting in the studio with Jim Brewington.
Yes,
who,
here I am.
Typically answers our questions, or at least does a lot of that heavy lifting. Our goal in this show is to get audience questions and to provide wisdom and insight into them. So, Jim, here it is for today.
Okay.
How can I love my... This is so funny. How can I love my neighbor when I have so many neighbors?
Why is that funny?
Because it feels like, oh, I'm trying, but like, wow, there's a lot of people, huh?
We are. If you consider but you thought about the neighborhood. You thought about the houses up and down the street and the people who live nearby.
It's like, man, there's a lot of people I have to love.
You know, when I was, the answer to the question is, let's define who a neighbor is, and then let's decide how we show love to them. And we'll do that as soon as we get through with this worthless banter back and forth about why this is funny. You know, I grew up in Texas, and I grew up in the Midwest, and in Texas is probably the most stranger-friendly state. Everyone talks to everybody. Everyone greets everybody. Even on the highway, when you're driving, you wave to people.
Yeah.
And
how many fingers are up when that happens?
Well, all of them.
Okay.
Well, no, 5, not 10.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
fair.
Not good.
That's right.
And so, growing up in the Midwest, the upper Midwest is not stranger-friendly, but they are very, very close-knit group of people. Yeah. And once you know them, and I sometimes felt I had to be introduced by my paternal grandparents, then they are wonderful people.
Yeah.
They're wonderful people anyway, but they're just not as socially aggressive as Texans are. Okay, and what I'm talking about is neighbor, and who is the neighbor. Here in California, I think a lot of the neighbors don't even know each other. It's just because, and I would blame the HOAs for that, the Homeowners Association.
I think it depends on a lot of things.
Well, it does. It does. But Middle English for neighbor, nay, means nearby. So anybody who is nearby, there is neighbor, which comes from dwelling, so those who dwell nearby. But I think more importantly, anybody who is nearby is a neighbor.
Yeah.
And, excuse me, that doesn't mean that everybody who shows up in our life is an assignment from God, that we are to do something. But everybody who shows up in our life, we are demanded to manifest the love of God to them. Well, how much? And the question had something to do. I have so many neighbors.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah,
we do. And if you live in a big city, in a crowded city, you take subways, you take the buses, public transportation, you walk down crowded sidewalks.
Sure.
Do I show love to all those people? Well, it is possible. It is possible to smile.
Yeah.
It is possible to have eye contact and nod without getting involved in a lifelong friendship with them.
That's right.
You just, or you can ignore them. I think ignoring them is the usual.
Yeah.
It just is.
That's how it
there
happens,
are too many. So the question asker's right. We've got too many people nearby for us to love our neighbor.
Yeah.
But withholding any kind of rejection from our neighbor or off-putting behavior or any kind of scoffing at, when we
Sure.
don't even know what the situation is.
That's right.
That's the opposite of loving.
Definitely.
The most salient manifestation of love is acceptance. Well, you can't accept everybody who's on the subway,
Right.
Nor should you, but you can make sure that the opposite doesn't show from yourself, that you are not rejecting, you are not snubbing.
That's right, yeah.
To offer somebody a seat
Yeah.
when it's crowded
Yeah.
and you have to stand up. There's the manifestation of love, which is defined handily in 2 Corinthians 13, but
Yeah.
also all the way through the Bible from Genesis to Maps. It's all in there.
Yeah.
But more explicitly in 1 Corinthians 13. All right.
Yeah.
How do we, how much behavior or regard for another person would constitute manifesting the love of God?
That's right.
And I think it could be minimal.
Yeah.
It not much at all. But if there is a person who is in trouble, who is sick, who is crying,
Right.
maybe you have to use your wisdom about how involved do I get here.
Mm-hmm.
But the tendency is toward Samaritan, good Samaritan, instead of ignore and let them get through this by themselves.
Yeah. My reaction to this question initially was to think that there are two words in the question that are in that need a definition ascribed to them or clarified. And you've already foraged the path on both of them. We need to define what a neighbor is. Right. And we need to define what love is as a verb. And I think that the question gets at a good tendency, but maybe a slightly confused tendency, which is that we think of love at maybe the maximal definition of like completely pouring yourself out for another person.
And committing lifelong.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah. And there's no practical way to do that to every one of your neighbors. Even if we were to define neighbors to just the people that live nearby you, you know, if you were to say only the people on my block or on my street, that's still probably, is that maybe 3 digits of people? Is that over 100 people perhaps? Right? And that's too many people for you to have that maximal amount of love and sacrifice and outpouring for, unless they have some way to organize themselves for you to do that to them. They don't. They all have their own lives and schedules. We have to gauge, and as you've said, the fact that we will interact with the majority of these people through passing moments and through like tangential interactions.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I'm thinking also when there is a neighborhood where there are people who have lived there for a long time, then there can be an open door for an ongoing relationship all the time. You don't want to close the door.
That's absolutely right.
We've lived in our neighborhood, in our house, since the 80s, and we have people who have lived on our block for as long.
Wow.
And we know each other.
Absolutely.
Do we interact every day? No. Mm-hmm. Are we involved in each other's life in different levels of intensity and depth?
Yeah.
We are involved in each other's lives, but the door is always open.
Yeah.
It's always there. We are friendly and we are friends with them.
Yeah.
And to close that door, which is easy with some neighbors.
That's right.
This one's a gossip, and you got to be careful. You don't want to be over there. They are always looking out their window to see what's going on with you. That's not fun to be involved with somebody like that.
That's right.
We also have people who have, it seems, disregard for the physicality of their house and yard, and even though the HOA will send letters.
Sure.
The HOA really has no power to do anything except to fine, and you don't have to pay the fines until you sell the house. So the whole thing is a farce. But anyway, the idea of being open to the people who dwell near us, and always, please open the door, come in. What's up? I hate that. But what? It's so intense, what do you want right now?
There's an inside joke here in the sense that I always say "What's up" when I walk into your classroom.
I know.
And you've always respond, "Don't say that."
Well, that's because of where's the friendly greeting? And
that is a friendly greeting.
Oh, okay, fine. It was what a tangent. Let's get back.
That's right.
If we have a relationship that is friendly and open, cordial,
yes,
with our neighbors, they know that they are welcome to come over and borrow something, or to maybe ask for help with something. We need to move a couch. Can you help us? That kind of openness. Maintaining that lifestyle, that perspective on other people is really the manifestation of love, even if a stranger is involved.
Yeah.
And
oh man,
you see, if you have that mindset, you have the attitude that I am open to whatever God is going to lay before me today,
yes,
for me to show love to them. That's not only evangelistic, it's practical for them, and it's
good for you.
It's good for us.
I feel like that is
my next thought.
Yeah, I feel like that is one of the smallest perspectives or changes a person could make to have one of the biggest dividends and payoffs in their life. Is if that is, because that alone is a small switch to flip, but what you get from that is a tremendous wealth of interaction and people that know you, and there's this community that comes from that. You appeared to balk at when I said that was an easy flip to switch.
No, it wasn't a balk. It was. Okay. It was. I have to think about that.
Yeah.
Is it easy for some people? That habit is foreign.
That's fair. I think you're right.
And that would require conscious. I don't know,
practice,
investment, energy, thought.
That's right.
And so forth. I have to regard the other person as more important than myself.
Yeah.
That's from Scripture.
I guess
that doesn't mean the other person is more important.
That's right.
We are to regard them that way.
Yeah. So that's a good point. And let me clarify something, because it does require energy. And I speak as an introvert. I don't have a hard time being nice to people. I have a hard time. I really just don't. You know me.
No, but I do.
I think I'm a tremendously nice person.
You are.
To
a fault.
My struggle is getting in the way of people to the point where I could even be nice in the first place. Avoidance is my issue, right? So that's where the energy comes in from my perspective. It's not hard if I'm with a person to be nice to them. That doesn't require energy from me personally. It's the fact that we're having an interaction at all. It's the creation of an interaction. Kind of tangential, but I still think that that's an investment worth making, I think, with your
it's
your
an
neighbors.
Attitude change, and now I'm thinking about the audience. And I'm thinking, if you're listening to this and this is a foreign concept to you, let's repeat it and make it simple, and challenge you to give it a try. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to say it to make it simple, but regard the other person. To regard the other person is more of a command in God's Word. It's a guideline also, but just regarding the other person is a start. Regard them as anything. Notice they're there. And when I consciously think about interacting with other people, I have said this in other episodes, I think, but everybody who is listening, everybody is going through something right now they wish they weren't going through. Keep that in mind. And the other person is going through something. What can I do to be an encourager? And it could be just a hello.
Yeah.
How are you? I was walking in a parking lot at one of our big malls here, going in to meet Debbie for lunch, and I had our little fuzzy dog with us. And So this thing is walking along with me, and we go between two cars in the parking lot. And another woman is coming. Not another woman. A woman
Sure.
was coming my way, and she looked at the dog and said, "Oh, what a cute dog. Are you going in to get the dog's picture with Santa?" No, not really. She said, "Well, there are a lot of dogs in there, and they're doing that, and that would be the perfect one for the." And then I said, "Well, okay, thanks for the info," and we just passed each other.
Yeah.
That exchange was did not have substance of any
That's right.
kind. We're not talking about the epistemological
Of
approach
course.
to the ontological argument for God.
nothing
We're
deep.
talking about nothing, but we regarded each other.
That's
Just
right.
to regard the other person is a manifestation of God's love.
Yeah, I love that. And what another thought that's occurring to me that is completely separate from what we've talked about so far, but it deals with neighbors and interactions and stuff, is I'm thinking back at the places that my wife and I have lived since we've gotten married. We've lived in 3 different places in a little more than 3 years.
I was going to say, how long have you been married? 6 months?
No, a little longer than that. But those places were certainly each different from each other. And I'm speaking even in like, look, I when I was in high school, I spent a couple years thinking that I was going to grow up to be an architect. And so I think about the intentionality of construction and buildings and design and stuff. Some of the places that we've lived, the first place we lived in particular, it was not like physically constructed to be conducive to neighborhood interactions. It was an Irvine Company apartment building where everybody had, of course, their own door in the big. It was a big, 3-story building, but you go into your apartment and the only windows you have looked out at the parking lot. And you truly we never
So there's
ran
no
in.
interaction unless it's at the doorway.
Exactly. We never ran into anybody. There were no public spaces other than like the pool. There was no community events. There was no barbecues and potlucks. There's just no opportunity for that. The second place we lived was totally different. And it was still an apartment complex, but the units were facing each other, and there were like plazas and little like parks kind of in between the buildings, and people were always kind of interacting and stuff. Like the construction of it says a lot, and I just want to be clear to the audience that like you may be in a place that takes more energy to do this than other places.
Yeah. But you don't want to exert a lot of energy. Don't force it.
No,
You wouldn't go knock, knock, knock. Hi.
Hello.
I'm here to love you. Do you have a moment?
Yeah.
That is.
Do you have any couches to move?
Do you have exactly? Are you discouraged? Let me help. I think it doesn't. The attitude, and if you'll go this way with me, the spirit.
Yes.
That we are created in the image of God, and His image is spirit, and we have spirit. When we allow His spirit, Him, to interact with and influence our spirit, and we're open to that and aware of that, either consciously or by habit in time, then we regard the other people. Mm-hmm. And we regard them with our spirit of love, not our machinations or the mechanical part of our showing love and behaving in such a way. Although that is part of it, but that's a natural outcome, offspring of our attitude of love. The Bible says God is love. He doesn't show love. He doesn't, although it can be received and recognized. But there's the attitude, and that's how my answer to this question. How do I love my neighbor when I have so many neighbors? And
absolutely,
that's it for me.
Yeah, I was trying to look real quick. I couldn't find it, but the way I would conclude this question, there's a quote. I believe it's from Martin Luther, the old theologian, that what a way to describe Martin. The old theologian.
I think he's dead.
I think we know who he is.
Yeah.
But there was some quote, and I couldn't find it in time, but it has to do with basically like you are just called to love the people that God kind of puts in front of you. And if that's what it takes, then that's all that there is to it.
Mm-hmm. But we did talk about don't avoid people because they are not attractive, because they're an annoyance, because Abraham Lincoln said, I thoroughly dislike this man. I must get to know him better.
I love that.
And the I must get to know him better means I have to aggress, to be cordial, and to find out about him and learn what's going on with him. And that's a manifestation of love, too.
It is.
Okay.
It is. I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Let's do it.
On this question. We'll move to the second segment, which is Surprise Jim. He's shaking his head already. We have
I'm not shaking my head on it. Let's not do it.
Oh, no. You're like, it was the kind of shaking your head.
Must.
Yeah, it was the kind of shaking your head that would be accompanied with like a sigh or something.
All right.
Jim, my question for you this week, if you could change lives, swap lives with any historical figure for one day, just to get a feel for what it would be like to live in their shoes, who from history would you most, or you don't like superlatives, pick someone in history that you would like to experience their life for a day just to see it and try it out?
Many.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go for it. Yeah.
I can think of many. The first one was, I'm not sure I want to, but I was thinking of Christopher Columbus.
Oh, wow.
What would it be like to, well, first of all, he fought with the Queen and had a horrible trip.
I guess it depends on what day you're swapping into.
I guess it depends on the day, but I was thinking of the day that, oh, look, I've just discovered America. Or is it the West Indies? I don't know. They'll argue about that in history classes later. Right. But that kind of energy, that kind of newness, to try something that's a little bit new.
Yeah, like the adventure of it.
I think it would be very interesting to me to be Dwight Eisenhower when he was president, having been a general and commanded so many people. The biographies I have read about Eisenhower is that there was a humility there when there could have been arrogance.
Sure.
And there could have been, look at my achievements and so forth.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think it would be very interesting to be in his shoes, to be in his head, to see what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
There, if I can go all the way back in history, I might want to be the Apostle Paul.
I was thinking
I don't
of
know
Paul.
which day.
I was literally thinking of Paul,
Probably not on the road to Damascus where he was blinded.
That sounds pretty
by
intense.
the light of Christ.
Yeah. Maybe after that.
Maybe
the day after that. Yeah.
Well, there are some people, I have wonderments about heaven, even though the Bible talks pretty explicitly about what heaven is like and what it is not like.
Yes.
But I still have curiosities about details. And I would like to meet some of the historical people who are in heaven and sit down with them for 500 years and talk about what did you go through, if we even have a memory.
Sure.
We have a new mind, we have a new body, we have a new name. According to Scripture.
Sure.
And I'm not sure how much of our life on earth is remembered, if any.
Sure.
But that would be a curiosity for me. What's it like? Did you have any idea, Paul, you would be this well known and that your writings would be this often read and quoted and so forth? More recent history, I don't know. My mind is going in so many directions with this question.
This is one of those questions, to be fair. Yeah, that it could be anybody you think of, you'd go, oh yeah, sure, I would try that.
I thought this morning about Queen Elizabeth II, who recently died, but was the longest reigning monarch in English history.
Yeah.
she took on that role. She had to take on that role of queen when she was very, very young.
That's right.
And she maintained the job of being queen up until the very end, greeting people and going. But that's a horrible life, I would think. I would not want that.
It would feel so structured and
it
predetermined.
Is and the family is a hierarchical family where they even walk in behind each other or make sure that the next person up on the hierarchy is in front and so forth.
Yeah, it's weird.
Some people, I know. I'm not sure I'd want that, but I would like to be inside her head for a while during the later part of her monarchy. Just to, what are you feeling? You've done such a good job, and you have gained respect from every member of your family. There wasn't one member of that family who did not love her and respect her, according to what they have said.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
fascinating.
Is that enough?
That's plenty. I love it.
This is probably a question I'll think about for a couple days.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great place to wrap up. It's always fun throwing those at you. You always end up having fun, despite the size and the head shakes.
Well, this idea of preparing for what you are going to say when it's going to be publicly said
feels good.
Is my habit. It's been my life. I rarely walked into a pulpit without knowing what I was going to be saying. Not verbatim.
Of course.
I didn't read sermons. If I'm going to read the sermon, I could just mail it to you.
Yeah.
But knowing generally what I'm going to say, even working from cluster notes, I had given it thought and prayer.
Absolutely.
For us to come in here and handle questions without that is not intimidating to me. I'm not reticent to do it. It's just unusual for me. It's a new experience.
For sure. I see you getting more comfortable with it, by the episode though, which is fun to see. Anyway, thank you for listening, folks.
Yes,
we want to extend an invitation to you to reach out to us. We have an email address that is brewingwithjim@gmail.com for you to send us messages, whether it's a question you want us to answer, if it is any other discussion, response, question for us that not for the show, anything like that. We'd love for you to reach out. That's brewingwithjim@gmail.com. So with that, that's another episode of Brewing with Jim. Thank you all for listening, and we hope you have a good week.
Me too.
The topics that are covered and the answers that are offered during episodes of Brewing with Jim are designed to mine the wisdom attained from a life of pastoral ministry and care. They do not constitute professional or clinical training or expertise in the areas of counseling or mental health. CVCS and its podcast network want to provide a platform for the discipleship of our community. Brewing with Jim is our attempt to foster that environment in a format that is accessible for everyone to participate in. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed during the show are the speaker's own, and they may or may not represent the views, thoughts, or opinions of Capistrano Valley Christian Schools or its faculty. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK-12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.